I used to watch the Charlie Rose show a lot. The reason I did is because I played basketball, noontime basketball at the Montclair YMCA, and it so happened that when I was getting dressed after playing basketball, the Charlie Rose show was on. I probably, look, I watched the World Series, okay? But anyway, Charlie Rose is on. And I've told this story, by the way, and a couple of times had people who work with Charlie Rose in the room. And I've learned to be very careful about the way I tell the story, because I understand he is a gentleman, a very nice guy, a very sincere person, okay? So if you're Charlie's brother or something, I just want to get that straight, that's the understanding I have. Well, I'm watching Charlie Rose, and Charlie Rose is a real intellectual, at least seems to be, and he has these long, deep philosophical discussions with a variety of personalities. Well, one day I saw him interviewing a brilliant Christian apologist. In other words, someone who holds to an orthodox view of Christianity, that which has been believed in all places and all times, as St. Vincent famously said. And he was offering some of the evidences of the truth claims of Christianity, kind of what I did last week in my talk, where I talked about why should we believe the Bible, why is it any more important than the other book, and I didn't just say, well, we should believe it just because we should just believe it, which is kind of how I was raised, by the way, and that wasn't good enough for me, so as I got older, I started figuring out why should I try to believe it, and I found out there are a lot of really good reasons to believe that the Bible really is what it says it is, that Jesus said what it says he said, and that he meant it, right? And so, you know, we talked, so this guy's talking, as I did last week, only much more intelligently and articulately than I'm capable. He's talked about, you know, archaeology and fulfilled prophecies and the empirical evidences for the bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ. And by the way, there are empirical evidences for the bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ. For instance, they've never found the body. It's a small thing. The tomb's empty. I mean, some of it's just real kind of simple. But anyway, he's making these brilliant arguments. And from my perspective, the expression on Charlie Rose's face and the questions he's asked came across to me as a sneer. Now, I don't know that. I'm not in his head or his heart. I'm just telling you what I saw. And I could be all wrong. I doubt it. It would be unusual, actually. No, I'm kidding. Some of you don't know me very well. You're saying, oh, boy, this guy. Well, hang on a minute. You'll feel worse about me in a moment. Just hang on. So Charlie Rose, to me, it seems, is this kind of, it's like he's saying to this brilliant intellectual. He's a Christian. He's saying, kind of like, you got to be kidding. You really believe that? You really how can you really believe that? And that's the kind of the nature of the conversation. And I mean, this guy was just, his arguments were unassailable. But Charlie Rose was just, well, I was getting dressed after a basketball game a few days later, and I saw Charlie Rose interviewing Richard Gere. Now, I've also told this story when friends of Richard Gere have been in the room and texted him the next day and said, my pastor told this story about you last night, Richard. And evidently he laughed. But I understand, just in case you're Richard's sister or something, that he's a really nice guy. And very sincere in his pursuit of spirituality. I truly believe that. And, well, Richard Gere, he's a pantheist. He's into a particular form of Buddhism, and he was talking about some time he had spent with the Dalai Lama. By the way, the Dalai Lama seems pretty cool. I'd like to meet him, spend time with him too. So no problem with that. I'm listening, right? And Richard Gere, by the way, anything else you want to say about Richard Gere is he's really cool, right? I mean, he's cool. He just leaks coolness. He was married to Cindy Crawford. I mean, how cool. You can tell my wife's not here this morning, right? Run, baby, run. But he was married to Cindy Crawford. Right? So, I mean, this guy's cool. So I'm like, Richard's so cool, man. And he's sitting there, you know, dressed just right, like he didn't mean to get dressed just right. And his hair's ruffled. With the hair thing makes me mad anyway. And he's sitting there and he's just looking so cool, right? And he says, I was with the Dalai Lama and it was just a spiritual experience. And he said, man, the Dalai Lama did this exercise where he said, and this is what Richard Gere did. He said he breathed in, or I actually said he sucked in all the evil in the world. And Gere goes, he looked like he'd done that before, by the way. And then he said, then he said, and he breathed out love. And Charlie Rose goes, oh man, that's so cool. Oh, you saw him do that. And you know, I'm having the obvious, to me, logical thought. I'm thinking, where was I the day that the Dalai Lama breathed in all the evil in the world? I missed that day. And I missed the moment that all the love got breathed out. I missed the whole thing. My point is, Charlie Rose didn't ask Richard Gere for any evidence that all the evil in the world had been breathed in. He didn't challenge that claim of experience or truth. It was like he wanted to jump across the table and give Richard a big hug and say, man, that is the most, this is inherent in the kind of, you know, we are all Hindus now, reality that's going on in this country right now is that the person who's sitting there with 2,000 years of dealing with higher criticism and working through the evidences for Christianity and talking about the resurrection and talking about, you know, why is it that 1 billion people on this planet still believe this Jesus stuff? That's the person who's looked at like, what? But the person who says, hey man, we're all God, God's all, the tree's God, your miniature schnauzer's God, I'm God, we're just all one with this thing. I'm not saying it is or isn't true. I'm just saying that we should ask the same kinds of questions about any claim to truth or religion and its claims or experiences.